in the 60s, from 1968 through to I think it was 1990, he was one of the heads of sports science. But he was like advising on the East German national team, the DDR. He was also the head doctor for sports club Dynamo Berlin, which of course
Dynamo Berlin, was the swimming club.
The swimming club. Now I remember, and Johann, you remember. So the boys might be maybe a bit young for this. You remember the absolute. The superb performances from East German in the especially in the just when things were starting to break down, for example, like so you had these terrific athletes like Katrin Krabbe, Grit Breuer, as on athletes.
Christiane Sommerknacke.
Yes.
The first to swim the 100-meter butterfly under 1 minute.
Exactly. And then, so you got like runners, you got swimmers, but I think Heike Drexler as well, who they had, I remember, and I cannot for the life of me find it, but it was a BBC documentary where they found that they had gotten the list of how they were doping her, but her performances were going down because her body was reacting the wrong way. When they stopped doping her, she began to perform. So it was this, it had the opposite effect on her. They gave her something different. And I also remember she was a young girl, maybe 16, 17, like gorgeous girl, terrific swimmer, Franziska van Alpsig.
Yeah.
Now, if anyone looks up, she just blew people away and suddenly ran into the Chinese. The Chinese had gotten their East German doctors over. The Russians had got theirs. The UK had theirs. They had for the UK rowing, which is always very good because, of course, it's a culture in like, for example, many universities. They had
that's
Jürgen
a good point. British rowing, that's a good point.
Jürgen Grobler, they brought in.
Yeah.
I know in Ireland when I was only starting university in 91, there were a couple of guys who came in from East Germany to advise the university rugby team, but they were kind of pushed aside because, Ireland at that time they were still trying to be amateur, not knowing to be professional. But Bernd Pansold, again, this man, he's an age now. He's 81, I think it is. Was that correct?
Yeah.
81. Last year, you were telling me, or you told me this year, but last year, he renewed his medical license to continue practicing. And of course, he has been a doctor to the stars. Here we see him, of course, with Red Bull. The blonde in the picture hugging on to Tiger Woods is Lindsey Vonn, of course, superstar American skier. She went to consult him. And of course, in 1998, he was fined they found out that he was doping little children to make them, better, I guess. And of course, that all sort of disappeared. He doesn't do that anymore. Johann, I want to hand this over to you now because I've met the man very briefly. That was the man very briefly. Only found out after the fact who he was because I didn't know who he just was a nice kind of uncle, but he was just called Uncle. Johann, give us a background on him. Tell us about him. Of course, he's linked to a death as well, a very, very tragic death. So tell us a story.
A background about Pansold's life.
Exactly, and sort of the outside of sports, and then we'll go into the sports side as well. So it's over to you.
So Bernd Pansold is a medicine. He studied medicine and he studied biology, and he got a very, very fine knowledge about the chemistry of the human body. That was one of the things that made him special. And he registered into the East German sports system, and he became the leading doctor of, as you mentioned, Dynamo Berlin, which was the biggest swimming club in East Germany, and the Stasi, the federal Geheimpolizei, like the NSA of USA, you know, and he had, of course, many doctors helping him, but he was the one who invented this three-step test method, you know, to get from aerob muscle activity to anaerob muscle activity, meaning muscle activity aerob is where you so much oxygen like your body can process. Anaerob is you're processing more oxygen that your body can get into. So they're staying in your body certain things behind which make your muscles ache the next day. You know, I don't know what you call it in England in English. And he invented this, you know, blood taking to test stage a sportsman or sportswoman was after the training. So he could optimize the training, fast you run, how much you lift, how hard you train, the intensity, the length of your training. And he became pretty famous for this. And he was one of the best in this regard worldwide, and maybe he still is. That's why he was so sought after for lecturing in all of the world. But the second side of his is he became an agent, a secret agent, and he was spying on his colleagues, and he was spying on the sports guys and sports girls to help the secret police to determine who could get out of the DDR, the East Germany, to make international competitions, and who won't because they were not. So he was helping these sports men, sportswomen, sports to get better, but he oversaw at the same time who was by the police allowed to go abroad and who was not. And this, I must say, learned very well. He's a very charming, nice opapa, grandpa. He's charming. You talk to, but he's an ice cold guy at his heart. You know, who can't be moved. I spoke on the telephone with him at the end of our research for this podcast. We went there. We knocked on his house. He came out of the house. He talked to colleagues of Germany and me of Bayern, two very nice, very competent journalists from Bayuvaria and me. And he talked like we were arranging a meeting for a coffee, you know, in a coffee shop. No, there are, yeah, I like to talk to you. I don't want to answer questions. There's no need. I'm out of a job. I don't want to work anymore. Yes, I still read something, books, you know, because the gray cells need to work. But, you know, then he talked about the death of his girlfriend, which we maybe talk about a little more later. And he said, and this is really what shocked me. I just realized it afterwards when we were sitting in the car and talking about with Pansold. My God, talking about silver, we could talk about the weather too, you know. So this was a guy who supposedly killed his own girlfriend by accident, I must say, but another guy got convicted about this. So, and this coldness, this determination to have success, his knowledge, his international fame is what I think it couldn't have been any other way that attracted Didi Mateschitz, the owner of Red Bull, and he contacted him and he made him the chief medical officer for the whole Red Bull sports program. And Bastian Vettel to Lindsey Vonn to all kinds of guys and girls from all over the world. They came to Red Bull to be tested and treated and getting training schedules from Pansold.